Alright, that's the end of 796. It's at 801 in Empires of the Middle Ages. Played for the first time with raiders coming in the Mediterranean. I had forgotten about them. We're already seeing the reduction of social state taking place pretty heavily. Lombardy is down to a 0. The Spanish territories are down. That's going to all hit valueless by the time the Carolingian Empire splits up. Got a new emperor in Byzantium. This is with a 5 for diplomacy. That's a good value, but diplomacy is so questionable. They spent a fortune trying to get Verona and got nowhere. The cards that produce diplomatic results are pretty low, are pretty unlikely. Otherwise, he's pretty much trying to maintain the state he's got. He actually spends some money, which is a dangerous thing. The Franks, on the other hand, grabbed another enlargement of King's personal domain. They have a goodly pile of money, which they will have to use before the end of turn 9, or round 9, or else it just goes away. They had conquered Naples before. They got a claim to it this time. Did a diplomatic action, got a recognition of claim card in order to upgrade that. They also did a diplomatic conquest over in Northumbria. You may question whether or not they should just militarily conquest things in England. I think they're going to probably go for owning England at this point and maybe trying to break up the Celtic side of things so that no new players can come in over there. The one problem they're facing right now is they're going to have Vikings, and they might want to go in and try to convert the Vikings in order to reduce the chances of problems in the north there. While they have Charlemagne, that actually tends to be a pretty good thing for him to do because he's so good. Another option would be to try to create a Polish kingdom. I usually don't do that. It's just such low value compared to in terms of for one of the kingdoms. There are going to be 3 players. Historically, it was split up into sort of a German, a French, and then the Burgundian inheritance. The Burgundian inheritance tended to be something that I don't even know if you can create in the game, because you'd be running, what, Friesland, Flanders, maybe Lorraine and Swabia. I think they had Switzerland, and maybe some of the Italian territories. But there's no... well, if they had Lorraine, Swabia, and Switzerland, it would be a valid kingdom. But then the German side doesn't really exist. So splitting into 3 is kind of tough in this game because you have to give someone 3 territories of the same language. Getting the historical result, I think, is actually impossible because, well, no, because Austria is not German yet. So I'm not really sure. I don't know how that's supposed to be plausible as a division. Although maybe they can pick a capital not in one of their languages. Usually what ends up splitting up is a northern French territory, a Germanic territory, and then kind of a southern territory that's just a hosed position. I'm not quite sure how to divide things up if they grab England, because England becomes a crown piece. It becomes one of the valuable things to be king of, but you don't want to make all of the Romance languages into one kingdom. So it's kind of tough to negotiate how those players are going to divide things up. If there's an Italian kingdom, which quite often is the case when I play, that's just so boned because of the Saracens. Alright, on to 801 and the beginning of the Viking raid. 806, and the Byzantines did a few interesting things. One was they conquered Corsica diplomatically, which is kind of cool. Then they lost their leader and got actually a pretty damn good leader. 9 combat stature, 5 diploma, or 5 administration. So they went and took Serbia, which is still pagan. They have to rule that and try to convert it. If they convert it, they convert all those Southern Slavonics to Eastern Orthodox, which will be helpful to them. And maybe they can link up to Verona and Venice and, you know, make one solid empire over there through the Balkans into North Italy. The Franks, on the other hand, had some problems with taxation, so they had some unrest, which they had to quell. And then they proceeded to conquer Denmark, but they did not try to convert it. They actually had thrown out, it's gone now. They had thrown out the card, which gives a bonus to converting people. So they're probably not going to try to convert that. And then they went over and conquered Mercia. And we're seeing the effects of that first Viking raid, especially in England. Now, they're not going to come back until 826, and then they're only there for one round, and then they come back in 851, and they come back big and hard for a couple 25-year periods with some large gap in between. It really behooves the Northern European players to get rid of them as quickly as possible because they are really, really dangerous. Likewise, the Magyar can be gotten rid of, and that's one of the motions towards taking Serbia, is to get into that position. One thing kind of cool, the Franks picked up a weapons advance, which makes combat a little easier. I had mentioned something, I think, in the first video about how sad I was this hadn't been reprinted. I was wrong. It has been reprinted. When I looked at the game for the first time on Board Game Geek, I noticed there was actually a Decision Games copy of it. It looks very similar, except they got rid of the boxes and replaced them with areas, which I don't know what that. I don't know if that changes the terrain at all, because there are some oddities with, for example, Kiev is kind of weird. I'm not sure that could be expressed as areas, unless they use like mountains and stuff and see they're impassable. I don't know if that's for the good or bad. Better looking components in that though. So, but this is classic to me, this odd look. Alright. Here we are in 811. The Byzantines failed in their attempt to convert Serbia, and it actually revolted. They went forward and took Verona, however, instead, and got claim to that. So, you know, they're trying to strengthen their position. Even with a 9-5-3, it's tough to get things done in this game. The Franks, on the other hand, with their still having Charlemagne, he could have died, but the result didn't come up, had an outbreak of heresy card show up. And that ended up targeting Rome, of all places. It ended up going neutral and heretical, and they went and reconquered it to prevent the heresy from spreading throughout the North Italian areas. Probably a good move. It does leave Naples in a more exposed position, but not terribly so. I mean, they can still reach it by land. They expanded their influence into Scotland, which breaks up the possibility of a Celtic kingdom forming. But that's such a bone if it happens. I mean, they could have allowed it and it would give Britain something to do, someone to fight, but it's just such an annoyance for everyone. I mean, it's not a kingdom that's really capable of living for long. And they also went and took Aragon, just in order. They had one card left and nothing great to do. They have a lot of areas in unrest, which they should be trying to fix, but they kind of want to make the best out of things while they have that weapons advance in place, and they have Charlemagne and all kind of money and power. So that didn't seem like a bad idea to grab some land. All right. 816, and we're at the extent of Charlemagne's power. He dies now at the end of this, and his empire will be divided. Interesting factors. One, we had a magnate, and it sucks that these are gray because they're hardly noticeable, appear in Denmark, which took over that and then succeeded to hurt itself trying to capture Wessex. The Franks did conquer Wessex, so now there's a nice little territory over in England. They took Brittany. They expanded their territories in northern Spain, and otherwise held on to what they have. So they've got a pretty good territory. I'll be dividing it up, and you'll see the effects of that in the next video. We'll end it here, with this video here. It's taken long enough, even though we're not done with the complete turn. We've only done 4 rounds. And the Byzantines reconquered Serbia. And that's really about it for them. They tried to maintain what they have. I'm not sure how it's going to divide. It's an interesting world right now. Obviously, the goal here is to make 3 players who don't necessarily want to fight each other over their territory have good positions overall. Let's see if this guy died. And let's see if the Byzantine Emperor died. Okay, so they both live. That each have something to do. So I'm looking at, well, the Germans can expand eastward, or maybe move against the Byzantines to the south. Sort of a central position probably wants to either... So there's 2 options here. One would be to divide it mainly Germany, Romance, and England, because England's kind of cool. And we could give England the Flanders and Friesland territories, which are very, very wealthy. That would have the concept of trying to create, trying to take the Scandinavians out of being raiders, get rid of the Vikings. The Spanish have the ability to expand southward, even though it's not very valuable. And see, here's where things get ugly, because converting Poland is really not in the best interests of the people who live near it. So where do they expand? Because if they convert all of Poland without owning it, it ends up becoming another Catholic player right on their border who becomes a pain in their butt. These are the kind of decisions, and once we see the final division, we'll see what happens. I'll start the next turn with what that situation is. All right.